All players close your eyes. Yes, including you. And put your fist out over the table so that any player can see it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Analysis Paralysis Podcast. I'm your host, Peter.
I'm Antoine.
And today we are talking about hidden identity games. Now, when we say hidden identity games, we are talking about those games like Mafia, where everybody takes a hidden role and we don't know who is who. So there's teams, there could be good guys, there could be bad guys, there could be the resistance, there could be the rebellion.
There could be also liberals,
Fascist. But basically, games where the roles are hidden and we don't know who is who, so you don't know who's on your team and who's against you. My first real encounter with a hidden identity game, actually, I guess maybe the very first versions that I've seen of it was theater-oriented games, even before the card games that we've played. But in our theater games that we would play in drama, Miss Jordan had the one where there's a person who is the killer essentially, and everybody else is just commingling around. And what happens is we're all walking around shaking hands and saying hello to everybody, and the killer person is just going around and squeezing people's hands when they shake, and that's an indication for a kill. Everybody else, once they get killed, they can't die immediately because that gives them away. So instead, what they end up doing, they pause a second, they might walk over somewhere, and then you just fall over. Oh, I'm dying. And then that's it.
Of course, in the most melodramatic fashion possible, because this was drama.
Absolutely. So what was your first encounter with a hidden identity game?
I mean, honestly, now that you mentioned that, it would have been at the same time, since I played those same games in high school with you. And I didn't play games like Avalon or Mafia or Werewolf until much later. So same interaction, the hand squeezing game. But then I forgot about that, and then I picked up on the social deduction craze later in life and ran with it really hard.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we had that one game night. Maybe it was an anime night. Maybe it was an anime night that turned into a game night. But there was one game night, you had Resistance. You brought it down, and it was Resistance for us then, not Avalon. It hadn't transformed into Avalon with the Merlin character yet.
Yep.
In the game Resistance, you have people who are either a part of the government, who are the bad people, they're spies, and then the resistance, which is a rebellion against the government. So those are the good people. The way the roles are taken is the spies know who each other are, and the resistance actually don't. So they don't know who's on their team and against their team. So throughout the game, people will be taken in as a leader, and that leader will select upwards to 5 people to go on what we call a mission, which is basically people just voting yay or nay to pass or fail. There could be a spy in it, there couldn't be a spy in it, but basically the resistance only has the choice of saying pass, but the spies have the ability to say pass or fail. For the good side, for the resistance, they're there trying to make sure that they only get the resistance on that team, whereas the spies are there trying to get into the team and then also trying to give out those fails so then they can win over time.
Yeah, what you just described is actually pretty standard across the board. It's pretty common that the good people know nothing and the bad people know everything. It gives them a slight advantage, but the good people have strength in numbers. That's pretty even. I would say almost every social deduction game is formatted in that fashion. There are more good people than bad people, and the bad people have slightly more information than the good people.
What was it about the social deduction part that got you into Resistance?
I think I found out I'm a really good liar. And that felt good. Like, I don't lie often in real life. I'm pretty sure I don't. But when you get into one of these games and you're just the ability to deceive people and make them think that you're on their side when really you're trying to, murder them. It just feels, it's fun. It's exhilarating. I think really the thing that kicked it off the most for me was probably when we took that game theory class. Learning about options people might take based on previously discerned information is just exciting. It's cool to think, oh man, I bet this person's bad based on the votes that they did or based on the actions that they took earlier in this round, and like really compiling all of that information and just trying to figure out who the bad people people are, it's got to be my favorite part. So as soon as that became a function of these games, I think every time I got the opportunity to play one, I was going to take it.
I totally agree. I really enjoy the deduction aspect of these games. For me, it's always about, why is this person doing this? Why did they vote this way? And what I love about the deduction oriented games, especially when you start off, because when we started off, none of us really thought about what was going on when people were a spy or bad, good or bad. And so I feel like very early on, it's kind of emotional. You have people going, trust me, I'm a good guy. Please just let me go on the team. You have people doing that versus like later on, it's a very different meta level. So at times I even found myself like, I'm all right. I'm good. Don't, trust me. It's okay. Like, it's not even trying to ham up or try to be more convincing or emotional with it, but even almost in instances like when we're playing other versions, like, or their other variations, like the Cthulhu game. The Cthulhu game, I think, is one where revealing your badness doesn't indicate a loss, yes, necessarily. Don't mess with Cthulhu. Like, that game is definitely first of all, nobody knows who anybody is, and so as a oh gosh, what are they called? Cultist. As a cultist, since you don't know who the other cultists are, if you could find one, all of a sudden everything could be trusted.
Yeah, it's one of the few exceptions to the rule that we were talking about a second ago where, like you just said, you know nothing, but that can be taken to your advantage. You can play the game along as an investigator, as a good guy for the whole game. And then when the moment is right, when you draw Cthulhu or when they're about to get all the elder signs, you can make the bold statement, the bold claim, I'm a bad person. Who else is bad? Join me so we can end this game in our favor. And it's just a chilling moment sometimes where you gain their trust again. I think this might make me a bad person. The more I talk about this, I'm realizing how terrible it sounds, but you gain everyone's trust and then you just boom, tell them that you're not on their side.
Yeah, it's that joy of manipulation. You just feel like, yeah, you're this mastermind that you've got a plan doked out already. And when people trust you, it feels good, even though you're lying to them. It feels good to be lying to them.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good for them though.
Yeah. But yeah, I've loved all the different variations that we've played. So tell me, what do you think about Secret Hitler, which kind of has a luck-based scenario attached to it, unlike Avalon, where most of the luck is in who gets selected. Secret Hitler has the luck based on the policy tokens that are drawn.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's wonderfully crafted. It kind of shifts that because now the skill of picking the right people to go in the party is still there. It's reduced because it's always just two people, the chancellor and the president.
Yeah.
It's reduced to two there. So you're only sending two people on the mission. But now there's a possibility that you're a good guy or a good person and the other person's good as well. You draw 3 fascist tiles. And you can't do anything about it. Everyone now thinks that you're a fascist. It adds another level of thought to it, a level of, were they lying about the tile draw? Or were they lying about the tile discard? Or were they lying about the tile play? Or were they telling the truth all along? I really appreciate that additional added level to it, as well as the board has some features on it that kind of help you figure things out. Because at the start of Secret Hitler, much like all the other games, most of the other games, the fascists know who they are. They know each other, minus Hitler. He's left in the dark, as he should be. And so they have the advantage of knowledge, but there's powers unlocked when you fail. So the more you fail, the more balanced it gets. It kind of leans towards liberal ideals, or not ideals, liberal assistances. Like you get to look at someone's card, or you get to kill someone outright, and those powers can really tilt the scales. So yeah, I think Secret Hitler is a great game. Sorry, what about you?
No, I've always enjoyed Secret Hitler. I think that's one that I have a little trouble. Being bad is more difficult than I want it to be, especially with that play of what you get. Because the opposite end, you could get 3 policy tokens that are all for the liberals, and you can't give them the garbage and be like, oh, this was the only thing I got. I only got bad. I only got good. So good on us. But maybe that also garners trust in you as well. So it's kind of how you play it. I think when I say it's difficult as one of the people, I'm also thinking of myself as not Hitler. When you're a secret Hitler in that game, when you become the president, if you're ever the president, that's a victory. Or is it president or chancellor?
It's elected president, but it's halfway through the game. So you can
Halfway
become
through.
president. And yeah, there have to be a certain number of fascist tiles played. And once that happens, if Hitler is elected president, then it's an automatic win for the fascists.
I think it's hard to get into that play as just a fascist by yourself, just knowing scheming like, let me just add in Antoine as president this time.
Yeah, now's the opportunity for me to elect Hitler. Yeah, but it feels good to get a win like that.
Yeah,
Just as equally as it feels terrible to not catch the loss, to not prevent the loss.
totally.
So, question for you.
Go ahead.
I know there's a lot to choose from, but do you believe that you could pick a favorite social deduction game or a favorite game to be bad and a favorite game to be good?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like those questions. I think I could do both. I think favorite game to be bad is Cthulhu or Don't Mess with Cthulhu.
Yep.
To me it's still fun because you don't know who's lying and not lying, and a lot of that is actually based off of you admitting what you have or don't have in your card range. That one also has a luck level to it where people are selecting to see if they can find elder signs, and you could plainly, as a bad person, a good strong lie could be like, oh, I've got 3 elder signs. You could have 2 elder signs, and you could also have Cthulhu. And so making that claim, there's that 1/5 chance in a starting game. Maybe it's more so like as it gets smaller. Maybe as the card range gets smaller, it's closer to danger zone. But being able to pick and choose how you do that, I enjoy that in that game. Being a bad person. For a good person, I think classically I still like being in Resistance or Avalon as a good person. That one I feel is more about who's lying to me, because the bad people in Avalon know who they are. And if I'm not Merlin and I don't know who they are, then my game plan is always just like, what is everybody doing? It involves the most social deduction that you can take, in my opinion. Maybe there's some other ones that might involve about equal or the same. Actually, I take that back. I think another one that requires a lot of social deduction is werewords, which probably has even more so, I think, with the amount of guessing. Okay, this person was saying this word. Were they just guessing stupidly? Were they just throwing out answers to get rid of our answers? Or are they evil? Are they the bad guys? What about you? What are your favorites for either good or bad, or just in general? What's your favorite?
It's going to be real boring because I think both of my answers are the same as yours. Cthulhu is hands down my favorite game to be a bad person. It feels so good. Like the deception in that game just feels good. I like being a bad person in Cthulhu. So I'm not going to bore everyone with a repeat of what you just said. Avalon is one of my faves all time for sure. It's an oldie but a goodie. But I actually think it doesn't make it to the table very often. But Deception Murder in Hong Kong is one of my favorite places to be good. You get one shot. You only get one shot to
Do not
figure
miss
out.
a chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime. Thank you, Skittles. I mean, Reese's Pieces or something.
Right.
You have to bet your badge on it. You only get one opportunity, but it's like figuring out where the tail is pointing towards. Like I really like the role of the oh man, I'm talking about this game that I like, but I can't remember the function.
So you've got, I think it's investigators, the forensic scientists, and then, or maybe they're all detectives. Yeah, the forensic scientist, who's the quiet person. They can't say anything. They're the ones that just give the hints.
Yep. And then, there's the witness, depending on number of players. But the function behind it being that at the very beginning of the game, they pick 2 cards and then everyone's trying to figure it out. I just love the forensic scientist. I love their function of they splay out these cards that are kind of arbitrary, and sometimes it has no relation to the murder, but they have to make it work. And they can put them in, ascending order for how important they are. And you just say, okay, this person was obviously a teenager. No idea why. The murder has nothing to do with age. But if you think really hard, you can maybe think, oh, maybe they're saying a teenager because like this act was like rebellion. Like maybe they're drinking like beer and they shouldn't have. Maybe they're doing something that a youthful person might do, whereas they definitely didn't say it was an elderly person, so it wasn't like a slip and fall. So I just love trying to figure out what the forensic scientist was trying to tell you with those cards. I really do appreciate being a good person.
I think forensic scientist has one of the most inner turmoils during hearing people's deduction, like sitting there as a forensic scientist and listening to people go, "Oh, well, Peter definitely put this down because he thought this, right? He definitely thought this hanger would be the killing weapon, and so that's why he said clothes or a suit." It's just like, oh my gosh, you're sitting there and getting anxiety over people just either getting very close to it or possibly in the opposite direction where they seem to be just off the wall away from what you were trying to say.
Yeah. And you can't make eye contact because it'll give it away for some of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, you're fine. That's about all I had to say. It feels good trying to figure that out, trying to sleuth that out from what you're provided. So I do like being a good person in that game. I simply brought that up to be a variation to you saying Avalon, which is probably really my favorite.
So I do have another question because I think in my head coming into this, I had a lot of questions to ask. What is your strategy as a good person in Avalon? Not Merlin, just a good person.
My strategy is to be Merlin. I don't know how to tell you my strategy of me not being Merlin because I'm always Merlin. Unless, of course, I'm Merlin. Then I'm no longer Merlin. Let's see. My strategy as a good person. I don't know if I want to put this on the podcast. If our friends listen, they might understand. They might learn some more about me. I guess it's okay because this is a good person. So enough blabbering. So as Avalon, good person. First strategy: deny everything unless you're on the mission, and sometimes even if you are on the mission. Because from my perspective, again, this is probably the game theory thinking. Depending on number of players, let's say you're at the full force of 10, you've got 4 bad people, 6 good people. So if you are not on the mission of 3, that leaves 9 people and it's 5 and 4. So your probability of it being all good people is incredibly low. It's, I don't know, I can't math right now, but it's slightly less than, 25% chance that everyone's going to be on everyone on it's going to be good without you there. So you have to reject it. I reject it always. And obviously not until the end of the road, because by that time, the bad people would automatically win. But at the beginning of the game, until you get a feel for other players, I like to reject missions.
Yeah, I think that's something that I grew into as well, is rejecting missions. It was funny because our mutual friend Kevin, he just rejects missions all the time. That's his MO, is just to reject the mission.
Chaotic neutral.
And I did find a utility in that. In the same manner, you throw out a rejection and you can see how other people voted. And the more times you see how people voted, that informs your way of understanding who is who.
Exactly. Since in Avalon, the bad people know each other, they're more likely to vote positively for a mission where one of their fellow bad people are on said mission. So if you see someone voting positively for a mission that they're not on, then there's a chance that they know some information that you don't. And that information being that there's a bad person on it.
So let's say, what is the variation then if you were actually Merlin?
If I were Merlin, as Merlin, I think that once it's my turn to assign people a role, I think that's the only place that a variation would happen. I would play under the same strategy of rejecting until, I feel comfortable voting for it. But when it's my turn to put people on mission, 100% of the time, and I hate that I'm saying this, I will put bad people on that mission with hopes that the team rejects it. So I don't get sussed out as Merlin. I can't just magically out of thin air, I'm going to pick 4 perfect people to put on this mission, because the bad people will go, oh, how did he magically dodge all of us? So I will typically put 2 of them on the mission, because hopefully by the time it's my turn to pick, they've garnered some distrust, get my mission rejected, act sad about it, and then move on. Additionally, one other thing. I love, as Merlin, that is another power that I just adore. Because if you put multiple bad people on a mission in Avalon and they want to fail the mission, they have to somehow, between the 2 of them, non-verbally communicate which one of them is going to fail it and which one of them is going to pass it. Because if they both fail it, that's going to provide the good people with too much information. So I do love that moment. I like to have that power in my hands.
Merlin for me is always a anxiety ridden role. I don't like being Merlin. I feel like every time I am Merlin, people suss me out instantly. They just know. Allison comes over and is just like, boom, Peter's Merlin.
Yeah, it's because you keep on putting the hat on.
Why do I keep wearing the hat and the freaking
Yeah.
staff?
Yeah, you grow a beard all of a sudden. You're too obvious with it.
Too obvious with it. Let's talk about Cthulhu strategy then.
Oh man.
I'll
Would you like to
start.
go first?
Yeah, I'll start with my Cthulhu strategy. Usually, if I'm good in Cthulhu, I am honestly just I take a lot of things at face value. My big thing with Cthulhu though is waiting in moments. Like if I happen to have something, if I happen to have like the Cthulhu on me, I almost never mention it until the very end if nobody else has mentioned it. But I wait and see if somebody decides to lie. Cthulhu is one of those games that I really like to listen to other people first before I make a statement about myself, especially when a person says, oh yeah, I've got 2 elder signs. And I'm like, well, that person has 2 elder signs. And that person has 2 elder signs. And that person has 3 elder signs. And that person has 2 elder signs. Do you really have 2 elder signs? Or actually, Mr. 3 elder signs, what's up with you? So as a good person, I'm usually trying to listen to that. I'll say across the board for most of these games, I rarely ever try to listen to a person's emotions. I don't necessarily, at least I don't feel like I get triggered or get emotionally pulled into a person saying, "Oh no, you gotta trust me." Nah, I don't care. And I guess the other part is just like I feel like I bankroll my idea of where I think signs are going to be. I think a lot of Cthulhu as a good person is also being very lucky in grabbing signs when you're talking to a person that has signs. I think maybe even one of the earlier strategies that I didn't mention as a good person is you do pick the person with the best odds. So you pick someone, if they say they have 2 elder signs and another person says they have 1 elder sign, I'm probably going to go for the 2 person because the odds are better that I'll hit one of those signs.
Even though sometimes statistics or probability lies to you. It fails you. It never lies, but it fails you. You're not done, but I would like to interject and say one thing. Cthulhu is actually one of the only games that I will lie as a good person.
Yeah.
And that I think is interesting. Like I will never lie in Avalon or Secret Hitler if I'm good. There's no gain to lying in those games. But Cthulhu, I will lie as a good person.
Yeah, I think that's true. Is Cthulhu gives the level of deception back to the good people that the other games don't give. That manipulation in manipulating the bad people is always awesome. And there's no better feeling than when you're that person that's like, yeah, I'm a bad guy, and they give you the sign, and they're like, guys, I'm actually good. Who's got the last one? I said sign, but I meant flashlight.
Yeah.
I think I've said all I wanted to say about strategy. You mentioned lying as a good person, and I agree. Lying as a good person in Cthulhu, like that has its utility for sure.
Yeah. What about you being a bad person in Cthulhu?
Bad person. I think I do focus on getting people's trust in that one. I think I still play obvious. Like maybe in that sense I play them almost the same. Oh, I guess how I lie. I don't normally like lying on an empty hand. So I'll only ever be lying when I have something in it. But I feel like lying on an empty hand is something that you should employ at times. At times, as a Cthulhu person, if I don't have an elder sign, if I don't have Cthulhu, I might still be like, I got an elder sign. It'll get people to think about it and come to me, but then it also might make people question the other elder signs. I hate saying tactics because now I know like if any of our friends listens to our podcast, they might go back like, hey Peter, at section at minute 14 seconds, you said this, so I have a feeling that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah. I'm taking notes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, expect me to be even better next time.
I think if I figured out who another bad person is, I do try to subtly make directions towards them. Hopefully not so much as that one time where Casey was looking straight at me across the room and you just keyed in that she was looking at me and we're trying to figure out something together.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, some good moments happen that honestly we've been playing it. We've played it a few times on Tabletop Simulator and you lose out on those.
Oh yeah, especially being in the room, that's a definitely good feel for those games.
Yeah. If I have to divulge one major trade secret that I have in Cthulhu, I mean, should I do it?
That's up to you, man.
Oh man, it's probably gonna mess up my Cthulhu game, but I mean, I had to do it. So, what I love to do when I'm bad in Cthulhu, since unlike all the other games, you don't get to find out who's bad. Like you don't get to find out who your partners are in that game. I like to do certain actions that will tell my bad people that I'm bad without necessarily telling everyone that I'm bad. So, for example, when you have that moment in the game where you can identify by the tells that someone is harboring Cthulhu and not telling you. Early round, good people typically tell you who Cthulhu is. So if someone's lying about it, then it's probably a cultist. In that moment, I like to say, I'm sorry, guys, I was waiting to hear everyone else. I have Cthulhu.
Oh,
What that
interesting.
does is it makes the investigators think, oh, you're good. Thank you for telling us you have Cthulhu. It makes the cultist who's hiding Cthulhu go, in the event that you don't win that round, they go, okay, they're on my team. I love doing that. It is a risk because there's a possibility that a good person is hiding Cthulhu. But if they're not, then you just gave ultimate information and you just made your team stronger.
There's a trust in your own deductive reasoning there. So it's
Mhm.
like you could be wrong. Sometimes
Yeah.
people just are inherently like you just feel like they're gonna be evil. You're just like Allison, okay, probably a cultist.
Yeah, she's got it in, well, she had it in her. She's on a good streak these days.
The last thing I'd like to talk about in regards to this is favorite moments that have ever happened to you as you've played any of these games, whether or not it's Avalon or Don't Mess with Cthulhu or Secret Hitler. What is like some of your favorite moments or worst moments for yourself?
I have 3 that immediately come to mind.
Oh, okay. So like go ahead and give that.
Yeah, the first one for Cthulhu, introduced the game to Cindy. She was deceived in the first round, and so in the next round, she is a cultist. I say it's the very first round. I say that I have Cthulhu. She goes for it. She just says revenge, and she goes for it with her 1 in 5 chance to strike out for Cthulhu. Unfortunately, she didn't get it. I guess fortunately for me, she did not get it. But that was just, it was just so amazing. It was just like, ah, I'm gonna get you back, and then just all the passion. I don't know, it's amazing. It's great. That's one great Don't Mess with Cthulhu moment. Very recently, actually, there was a moment where the bad people were about to win, and seeing that was about to happen, I was a good person. I convinced our dear friend Kevin to believe I was the third bad person. It was already identified that he was one bad person. Third person was Lauren, but I convinced more passionately that I was the other bad person. And he gave it to me, and then we got out of there scot free. We ended up winning. It was the very last round. Third moment is not a good one for me. We're playing, everyone's having a good time. I am an idiot. The cultists were up. We were destroying it, we were crushing it. It was so good. And in a moment of stupidity, I say, don't worry, you guys can still win. Those words came out of my mouth. Game's not over yet. And Sarah very quickly goes, you guys. And then I'm like, right in that moment, I just felt it in my gut. And I was like, there's no way out of this. I could lie. I could say it was a Freudian slip, but that doesn't fix anything. It was known. It was out there. So I said it, and we lost. The Colts ended up losing because I was no longer a viable target for selection, and it was just real bad, and I felt real bad. I lied to you. One more moment, then I'm done, I promise. Our friend Matt, again, some people just like to be good. Matt is one of those people. As a cultist, he wasn't lying. He wasn't doing anything a cultist should do. He was playing as an investigator the whole time, down to the last round where he has the elder sign, doesn't lie about it, just says, I got the elder sign. They give it to him. We win. I mean, the investigators win. We go to flip cards. He's a cultist. And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be good. And it was a great moment. It's funny. That's a game that's so fast that it's okay when you lose. So it's funny when moments like that happen. So that's it for me. What about you? Favorite moments?
My favorite moments, I think this is actually a moment that's shared between you and I. It's not a supreme victory moment. We're spies. And we don't get to be spies together as often, I don't think. I feel like
Yeah.
normally I'm pitted against you
Mhm.
when we're playing this game.
My rival.
So, but in this particular game, you and I are spies. What happens is that Antoine and I are both selected to go on a mission, and it's a 3-person mission. So effectively, there are 2 spies and 1 resistance member in our team. So it's actually, I think it's the first or second round then. Heck, it must be the first round in this game.
Mhm.
And somehow you and I are able to queue off. One of us knows to play fail when the other one plays pass. And so it gives that sensation that, oh, there's only one bad guy in there, even though there could be multiple bad guys. That moment when we did that, when we synchronized our actions together, that was amazing.
Yeah, it feels good when you get it right. But boy, it would have felt bad if we got it wrong.
Yeah. On the flip side, there was another time in another group, and somehow, I forget who magically did this, but all the bad people into one group. And that made all of us panic. So all of us threw past that round. It was such a wash. It made me think that guy must have been Merlin. What was that guy's name?
It was Gary.
Gary. Oh my gosh.
Yep. It was friend Gary. He only came a few times, but he nailed that.
The inner turmoil that we had there because he was able to just nail us. That was the crazy thing. He wasn't Merlin that round.
Yeah. Supreme luck or skill, but it worked. It worked real good. Man, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you now. You were cutting in and out for me. I don't want to talk too much about favorite moments, but now that you mention that moment from Avalon, I just wanted to bring up one other moment that happened in a social deduction game that we haven't talked about yet. So maybe this will get cut. But Spyfall, not one of my favorites. It's a great game. People love it. But oh man, that game makes me so anxious. Shoots my anxiety through the roof whenever I am the spy. In that game, I do not like being the spy. I can't answer questions without information. I just can't do it. Some people are good, but I'm not. So, moment that happened in that game, terrible fail on my part. I was the spy. Someone asked me, "Hey, where are you going?" And I said, "Around that corner." And Michelle goes, "Pause that!" and just bursts out. And she's like, that ain't it. Like, we're in an airplane. Antoine's the spy because you don't go around a corner in an airplane. And it was just like, I couldn't save myself. And it was just, it was miserable. I mean, it was a great moment. Everyone laughed, but just, that moment sticks with me. It's probably the reason I still don't play Spyfall today.
Man, I love Spyfall too. That game, like, you're not kidding. The anxiety as the one person without a picture in front of you is through the roof. You're just like, oh my gosh. I think you're really, in my head, I'm always just holding my fingers crossed and praying that they're not going to ask me a question.
Yep.
I'll tell you one person that always got me. Like, he just knew it was me. Was Cameron. Like, every time, like, I'd say something, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, hey, Antoine, what's your employer's name or whatever?"
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron would just look at me and be like, "Huh, I'm pretty sure it's Peter.
That's a little sketch. I'm pretty sure it's you."
Pretty sure it's Peter." No, man, that brings back all those like fun memories about like playing these different games.
Mm-hmm. They're great, and I mean, I kind of want to play one now.
Yeah, totally. We could play one together, just me and you.
Yeah, there is one that we could play together. That oh my gosh, Death Note game.
Yep.
So thank you all for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed our segment. We talked about a plethora of social deduction games, but there's also a lot to talk about. Great ones like Human Punishment. We didn't even breach the video games like Among Us and Push the Button, which have now become social deduction phenomena everywhere. So hopefully you guys, like I said, enjoyed the chat. If you did, please leave some comments. Give us a like or two, and tell us what your favorite social deduction games are and what your favorite moments are. Thank you very much for listening in. This was Analysis Paralysis Corner. Had to say it slow because I stuttered.
All good.